Welcome to Brain Info Live, for everyone in the brain health community. Brain Info Live is about hope, health, support, education, and you. Whether you're living with Alzheimer's or a caregiver, family member, or loved one of someone who is, Brain Info Live is here for everybody.
Hello, this is Dr. Young Trin, Chief Medical Officer at our new office here, actually at the Healthy Brain Clinic in Long Beach. And welcome back to our 18th episode of Brain Info Live program in Southern California. Today, we're going to do a recap of what we know about Alzheimer's dementia and whether we can prevent it. We'll also be touching on how to tell if your medications and treatments are legitimate or not, and strategies on how to not to fall prey to a lot of medical scams out there. And so with that said, we'll get a jump start on this episode with John Lewis, also known as J. Lou, the fitness guru from Atlanta, Georgia.
Welcome to Brain Info Live, for everyone in the brain health community. Brain Info Live is about hope, health, support, education, and you. Whether you're living with Alzheimer's or a caregiver, family member, or loved one of someone who is, Brain Info Live is here for everybody.
Hey, this your boy J. Lou. I want to welcome you to Brain Info Live. Today, if you have ankle weights, water bottles, heavy boots, heavy shoes, or you can use your own leg as weights, we're going to body sculpt that lower body, but guess what? We also going to target those abs. So let's get going in 5 seconds. Let's go. Okay. If you have any knee problems and you need to work on those quads, I'm going to show you how to do simple exercises. You can grab onto the chair, lean back, bring the leg up, flex the toe up, and extend. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's switch legs, lean back. 1, 2, come on. 3, 4, and 5. Okay, if you want to get the inner parts of the quad, turn the toe out a little bit. Turn it out, and let's go. 1, 2, 3. If you want to raise it up a little higher, you can. 4, and 5. Let's switch legs, toe out, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if you want to get that outer quad, turn the toe in. Ready? And go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Other leg, turn the toe in and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. I want to get a little bit of that hamstring, and we're going to get a light stretch and then pull. Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm just going to stay on this side. You ready? And let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now we're going to work on the hip flexor and plus those obliques. Y'all ready? Lift the leg up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Keep your body isolated, upright, back straight, and let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Great job. Now I'm going to do like a upward motion so we can really target that quad, also stretch those glutes and get those abs. Y'all ready? Sweep. 1, 2, 3. There we go. 4 and 5. Other leg. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, our next one. I'm gonna go out of the ankle and I come back. So it's out. Boom. You see how I dip and bring it back. 5. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Other side. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Great job. Okay, now I want you to open this leg up, lean a little bit, and we're gonna lift this leg up and hold on. Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're really getting those obliques in that hip. And good. Other leg, lean and go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Rest. It's almost like a jumping jack. If I had weights in my hand, I'll do the same motion. So it's gonna be 1. That's your motion. Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Come on. 7, 8, 9, and 10. Great job. Remember we swept forward? Now I want your legs straight. You bend, up, extend, and make a bicycle. Big bicycle. You ready? Let's go. 1, 2, come on. 3, 4, 5. 5 more. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Come on. 4 and 5. Hey, take that break if you need it. Let's get this other leg. And go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on. 5, 6, 7. Get it up. 8, 9, and 10. Great job. We just did a little body sculpting, added those abs in. We worked those hips, those glutes, those quads, and a little bit of rehab on the knees. This your boy J. Lou, and see you later. Bye.
More Americans than ever are buying medications online due to lower cost and convenience, but they don't realize the risks. Research from National Association of Boards of Pharmacy shows that 95% of around 35,000 online pharmacies operate illegally, peddling fake drugs that can be laced with deadly substances. Many of these websites sell medicines without a prescription and operate without a license.
You're looking at the American public potentially ingesting harmful chemicals into their bodies with unknown significant long-term effects. So that's why it's a major threat.
The realm of medicine is where science has the greatest impact at improving our day-to-day lives. When I learned that every day there were thousands of medications coming into people's homes that were counterfeit, where they were making the best possible scientific decision and yet they were still being hurt, I had to learn more and figure out where these drugs were coming from and what we could do about it. My name is Avisha Nasaver, and today I'm going to speak with Rick Roberts, a professor at the University of San Francisco and a member of the Partnership for Safe Medicine's Advisory Board. Rick became interested in the issue of medical safety after he received counterfeit versions of an AIDS medication that he was taking back in 2000. This was one of the first medications that was part of a recall because of counterfeit medicine issues. Rick, thank you so much for joining me today. I hear that you have a story in the counterfeit medication space that could impact so many people who might hear it. So if you don't mind just telling us a bit about what you had to go through.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I was prescribed a medication for AIDS wasting syndrome. It's injected And I had been on it for a few months, but all of a sudden I was injecting it like I had always done, but this time there was a stinging. I went to pick up my next month's supply and asked for the pharmacist. And the pharmacist just simply said, "You may have gotten some of the fake stuff. You should go home and check." And that was the beginning of a nightmare. My mind went to some dark places about what could happen.
Oh, that sounds like such a trial to have gone through. So I understand that your personal case was one of the very first to receive significant amounts of media attention. So could you walk us through a little bit about how that may have affected you and what the trickle-down effects may have been?
It was difficult. I know other people who got the same counterfeit, but didn't really want to talk about their medical issues in public. I think that's one of the things that keeps us from really hearing about the scope of this problem, is that it requires people to share their medical information or history and what happened to them. And I just thought it was really important.
After speaking with Rick, I wanted to know more about where these medications are coming from and how they enter the US. I've been invited to the Pfizer Research and Development site to meet specialized members of their team who work with counterfeit medications. I'm gonna get to see their high-tech equipment, work with their lead scientist, and figure out the process they go through to identify this counterfeit medication.
So this is where we keep our evidence. We have to keep it locked up because we have to maintain that chain of custody. So it looks like here that we've received a potential counterfeit. This is claiming to be a cancer medication. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take some photographs of the packaging.
Are you feeling confident about this one?
Well, we'll have to find out.
All right, let's do it.
Counterfeiters, they don't care if the product that they're making works, and they don't care if it's safe. What they care about is that it looks good enough to trick you to think that it's a real drug. Sometimes on the counterfeit bottles, it claims to have a certain artwork, so we can compare it against what it claims to have as the authentic artwork. All right, so we're finished taking our photos. I'm gonna pack this up, and then we can move to the videometer, which will help us kind of dive deeper into that packaging analysis. So our videometer is a multispectral imaging device. It will go through 19 different wavelengths from the UV, visible, and near IR.
This is not a fancy Death Star. So right now what I'm seeing is different grayscale images, but these each represent a different wavelength of light that has been blasted at this bottle.
Exactly. We'll be able to match and compare to previous counterfeits that have come into our lab. All right, we've taken our photographs, we've done our packaging analysis, so now it's time to start our chemical analysis.
All right, so which machine is next?
The next would be our Orbitrap. So we've opened a bunch of capsules and we've poured out the contents, and this is what we found inside. This is what we'll chemically analyze. Some of the things that we see include way too much active ingredient, upwards of 300% of what they claim to have. We've had no active ingredient. We've seen printer inks being used to make bright, vibrant tablet colors, or floor wax to make it that shiny coating.
All right, so what are we looking at here?
So now our sample has been separated into those individual components, and we're looking at the different masses of the UV profile, and using the data together, we'll be able to identify what those compounds might be.
So based on all the tests we've done here today, is this medication real or counterfeit?
So we've looked at the photographs, we've done physical testing, we've looked at that packaging and the physical and chemical analysis. We have a counterfeit drug.
After speaking with Rick about his experiences 20 years ago, and then with Tori and Lev about everything they're doing now to help combat counterfeit medications, I've realized that there is a large infrastructure in place to help deal with this issue, but they can't do what they are doing alone.
The most important aspect of this is consumer awareness, consumer education, and reducing the demand. I don't think we can seize or investigate our way through this problem. It's going to happen when the American public becomes better educated and decides that the risk is not worth it.
All right. It's a very important topic we want to discuss today, is bringing medications that shouldn't be on the market or shouldn't be promoted wrongly. And I would like to welcome Dr. Josh Grill from UC Irvine to our show today. Dr. Grill is a associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Human Behavior and Neurobiology and Behavior at the University of California in Irvine. He also directs its outreach, recruitment, and engagement core for UCI ADRC and is the leader of the accrual and retention consult service for UCI Institute for Clinical and Translational Science. Dr. Grill serves in several roles for ACTC, including being a co-leader for the Recruitment, Engagement, and Retention Unit, as well as the Internal Ethics Committee. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Trin. Sorry about my camera issues, but glad to join you nevertheless.
Yeah, just glad you're here, camera or not. You look just as good on your photo there. I want to recap here that, let's recap. What's Alzheimer's, what's dementia, and what is the difference, Josh, between that?
And this is, easily the most common question that we get, and I'm sure that you get when we're out in public talking about Alzheimer's disease research. What's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Simply put, dementia means that someone has cognitive problems that get in the way of living life the way they once did. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia, and it's the specific disease that's attacking the brain and causing those symptoms to occur. It's not the only cause of dementia, but it is the most common cause, and it's the cause that we're making tremendous inroads in improving our understanding and even treating the underlying changes in the brain that are causing someone to experience memory losses, language impairment, and an inability to live independently as they once did.
Absolutely. Can we predict who will and who won't get Alzheimer's or dementia?
Yeah, I think, again, we're making so much progress in understanding the causes of Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And the last few decades have revealed a lot of very important discoveries and understanding about risk factors for Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And we can use this information in a variety of ways, but as yet, we simply cannot predict who will and will not someday develop Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And we can talk to people about risk factors, including things like family history and even genetics, the genes that we all carry. But even if we could test someone's genes and sequence their entire genome, we still couldn't predict whether they will someday get Alzheimer's disease or not. And so, we spend a lot of our time out in the community talking about these things, trying to help people understand risk factors, do everything they can in their own life to lower their risk and minimize the things that might put them at increased risk. But we still don't have the complete recipe or equation to predict who's going to get this disease and who won't.
Absolutely. What do we currently know about prevention of Alzheimer's or dementia?
Yeah, I think, a lot of really important work is happening in the space of prevention, but we still cannot definitively prevent this disease in anyone. There's just nothing that anyone can do that can certainly instruct a plan or provide an intervention to make sure someone doesn't someday get Alzheimer's disease. So I think that's a really important message that we have to continue sharing until it changes. That as yet, we can't prevent this disease. We can, again, give people clear advice about lowering their risk, and we should do that. And there are a number of easy recommendations that can be made. Many of them have actually been codified in documents produced by groups like AARP, the Alzheimer's Association, the World Health Organization, et cetera. They're pretty straightforward recommendations, things that we know are good for our health, good for our hearts, turn out to also be good for our brain. So everyone should make sure they're getting enough physical exercise. Everyone should strive to eat a healthy diet that includes regular consumption of fish and other sources of healthy fats like olive oil and nuts, avoiding foods that are high in fat and cholesterol. If you smoke, you should quit, and no one should start smoking. If you have high blood pressure, you should work with your doctor to control your blood pressure. If you have high cholesterol, you should work with your doctor to control your cholesterol. And everyone should try to get a good night's sleep. When we sleep, we clean our brain. And one of the things we clean out of our brain is the protein that accumulates in Alzheimer's disease. And everyone should stay cognitively and socially active as they age. And altogether, these things do appear to have a meaningful impact on risk for Alzheimer's disease. But even if someone does all of those things, and sadly we've had lots of people who did everything right, it doesn't mean that they're certainly not going to get Alzheimer's disease and dementia. So everyone should do those things. And everyone should be aware and maximize their brain health with age. And we think that that's really important to do and potentially impactful, but we just can't offer guarantees.
That's a great point, Josh. There's a difference between lowering risk factors versus giving a guarantee of prevention. And you pointed out very well that we can lower our risk factors, but no one can give a guarantee. So that's great. We've spoken about financial scams on this show before, but do medical scams for dementia exist? And if so, what are some examples of potential, scams for Alzheimer's?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that scams do exist, and I know that this audience understands that Alzheimer's disease and dementia are really important afflictions that have a huge public health impact on our society. Probably many of the audience members have had their own lives touched by this disease. Alzheimer's disease is among the most feared conditions, and in some surveys is more feared compared to even cancer. And it's a condition that brings about great desperation when you or your loved one is afflicted. We all feel desperate to find solutions, to seek out actions we can take to try to help our loved one or help ourselves. And this fear and desperation puts people at risk to fall prey to bad actors. And sadly, throughout my career, I have known lots and lots of families who spent tremendous amounts of money on interventions or diagnostic technologies or various other things for which there was little to no evidence to support their use. These range from inappropriate use of expensive diagnostic tests to a variety of dietary supplements that are taken as pills, to even some riskier therapies that you can hear about. I think the general gist of this is that families, patients really need to vet the information they're getting. If there's a huge price tag associated with things, if it's thousands of dollars out of your pocket, that should raise a red flag. I mean, the advice I gave before about lowering your risk doesn't cost anything, and it shouldn't cost anything. You shouldn't have to sign up for classes or go to hotels to do workshops to learn that information. We'll provide that information free of charge and continue to do so. Similarly, if people are offering miraculous cures or things that will bring your loved one back to where they were before at a hefty price tag, that should really raise red flags. And it might be time for a second opinion, or certainly if this is information you're getting from a source other than your doctor, then you would want to talk to your doctor before you would even consider starting any new type of program or therapy. The sad fact of the matter is there are people out there who will, for their own financial gain, take advantage of the the fear and desperation felt by so many families in this country. And I think it's time we start doing a better job of telling people what to look out for.
Thank you. And absolutely, I agree with you. I think both of us have probably had plenty of patients come see us with their products in hand, and they see it on the news or a newspaper or some other miracle cure that has been quite alarming. And our families are certainly looking for these solutions.
I think that's exactly right. We see a lot of commercials on TV now for products that claim to be able to protect or improve cognition with age. And again, I think the evidence to support those claims is often lacking or certainly imperfect. And you just simply can't believe everything you see on TV or certainly things that you get in your email inbox or on the internet. People send me things very routinely that really alarm me in many cases. And even for things like supplements or products that include a lot of supplements, there's a common misconception that these things are at worst harmless, and that's not always the case. The fact that we lack evidence to support the efficacy of these products means that we often also lack evidence around their safety. And in particular, we don't know how these things might interact with each other or interact with other medications that people are taking. So really, I think first principle is to protect the safety of your loved one and making sure that they're not doing anything to harm them. It's not to say that there aren't some beneficial uses for some supplements, for example. If a person's deficient in their diet, a doctor may want them to take supplements for a specific reason. But when you're capable of eating a healthy diet and you're not deficient in these things, there's very little evidence to support any sort of health benefit of taking supplements.
Right. Yeah, I tell my patients often that there's a big difference between good science and good marketing, and they don't necessarily correlate. You can have good marketing and bad science, or vice versa.
You're absolutely right about that. And, I've noticed a variety of things in the materials that people send to me or that I see in other places that cause me to put together a small list that people can think about when they see these things. Just because it comes from a person who has degrees at the end of their name like you and I do, MDs and PhDs, doesn't necessarily mean that it's validated or been rigorously tested. Sometimes you'll see advertisements that cite scientific papers, but it's hard to know what those papers are or what they mean. It might be citing things that were done in a mouse as compared to in a human, or even just cells in a dish. The animal studies, although there's amazing work happening here at UCI to improve this, the animal studies don't always predict what happens in humans. I've seen a lot of things that use paid testimonials, so it's actors or people who feel like they really benefited from something talking about their experience. And again, that's not the same thing as rigorous evidence-based for medicine. And even some of these things I've seen will have quote unquote data from studies, but they're often open label studies, meaning that there was no control group. It wasn't a rigorous clinical trial. They use subjective scales to measure how things did or did not change, which leaves things very open to bias and problems in the performance of that science. And it gets treated like we would things that are regulated by the FDA, developed as prescription medications, and that's simply not appropriate.
Absolutely, and very scary when you don't know the difference, and you're just a consumer looking at some study that when you dig in deep, it's a study of 20 to 30 people, and it's not a rigorous study. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Any other red flags we should look for other than big price tags? on
Yeah,
products and
I
treatments?
think big price tags and lack of scientific evidence. I think if people, sometimes I've seen things be advertised as clinical trials, and we've seen groups even go so far as putting things on clinicaltrials.gov, which is a website that the government runs but doesn't closely regulate. And so even something appearing on clinicaltrials.gov isn't enough to make it valid. I mean, we do a lot of rigorous clinical trials. I know you're a part of clinical trials. They have to be registered on clinical trials, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's legitimate or something that people should consider. And again, in particular, if there's a charge associated with being in a clinical trial, that should be the biggest red flag. And I've even written letters to the editor of papers about why people should not be charged to participate in clinical trials and be, concerned or at least alerted when a clinical trial has costs associated with it. We strive to make participating in clinical trials cost neutral at worst, and really I think people deserve payment, financial compensation for their role in the discoveries we make through clinical trials, not the opposite of that. So I think that the key is to be aware of these red flags and have people or places you can go for information you can trust to try to check on these things. The National Institute on Aging supports most of the Alzheimer's research funded by NIH in this country and has an outstanding website at nia.nih.gov. The organization I'm a part of, UCI Mind, we strive to have a very timely website that's full of a lot of well-validated information. That's mind.uci.edu. And the Alzheimer's Association and other nonprofit organizations like AARP do a pretty good job of populating the internet with information that can be trusted. So know what to be on the lookout for and know where to go to double check or get a second opinion or make sure that something that sounds like it might be too good to be true isn't.
Sounds great, Josh. So folks who will bring you their meds or their treatments, these are the sites for you to advise. So these are the locations and websites that you would recommend to verify.
That's right. I mean, we are an NIA-funded Alzheimer's disease center of excellence, one of more than 30 around the country, and most of these centers do have websites. In particular, if this is a national audience, people might look at the NIA website to see if there's an Alzheimer's disease research center near them. But I think, while the crux of our mission is to do research that helps us discover ways to better understand, diagnose, treat, and prevent Alzheimer's disease, an important part of our mission is to share what we're learning with the community at large and be a source of trusted information. So our website, even things like our social media outlets, do fit in with that part of our mission, and we strive to constantly be sharing what we're learning and addressing things that we see in the media or headlines that are being drawn about, clinical trials or other things. So I think the more people can have those trusted sources and go back to them repeatedly when they need to, the safer they'll be.
That's great. Thank you. If there was one thing you'd like for our audience to remember, what would that be?
Well, the thing I haven't really talked about is that, I'm really alarmed by some of the things that I see happening to patients and family in this area of pseudomedicine. But we have a lot of exciting, rigorous research to try to change the practice of medicine and the clinical practice related to Alzheimer's disease. And the way that those changes occur is through rigorous, well-controlled, well-designed, well-conducted research. And in particular, clinical trials of new medications are how we get better treatments. And the most ubiquitous challenge, the most consistent barrier to developing new evidence-based medicines in the form of treatments for Alzheimer's disease, prevention and treatment, is low rates of participation in clinical trials. And so if you have a loved one who suffers from Alzheimer's disease, or if you yourself suffer from Alzheimer's disease, I would urge people to consider the possibility that instead of some scheme or shortcut that's being marketed with a lack of evidence, the best thing a person can do is go to a center that's performing these rigorous studies and think about participating in a clinical trial. Clinical trials don't have guarantees. There is a lot of exciting and promising work that's being done. But, the only way we're going to find these treatments is when more people sign up to participate in these studies. And, we have several hundred people who are participating in studies, including many participating in clinical trials with new treatments here at UCI Mind. And those people are absolutely my heroes. They have many reasons for wanting to be in these studies. It includes that they want to have access to treatments that are promising and may someday be the next generation of treatments. But they also want to make a difference. They want to help us make a difference in the mission to find solutions for patients and families. And I can't stress enough how grateful I am and all of my colleagues are here to the people who enroll in studies at our institution, and frankly, people who enroll in studies around the world. Because we're all in this together, and we all have contributions that we want to make, and only when people participate in studies are we going to reach our goal.
Absolutely. We have a question here from the audience. How can you make sure a clinical trial you want to enter is safe?
Yeah, so safety is really important. And if a clinical trial is a rigorous clinical trial, before someone begins participating, they should have the opportunity to undertake a very important process known as informed consent. Now, informed consent is not a piece of paper. It often involves a piece of paper that people will sign. But you should have the chance to read that paper, talk about it with others that you wish to talk to about it. That might be your family, or it might be your primary care physician, or it might be some other physician before you decide to participate in that trial. You should also have the chance to ask questions of the investigator conducting the study. And in that piece of paper that describes the study, and in that process of getting the information you need to make a decision about whether you want to be in that study, a key area of emphasis should be safety. The known risks associated with participating in the study should be listed. There should also be language about how we don't always know all of the risks associated with being in a study. And anytime someone takes any drug, approved or otherwise, and anytime someone participates in studies, there are some risks. And so you want to make sure you have all that information. But, again, we can't make promises. We simply can't promise that nothing bad is going to happen to you. And in particular, in studies of older people with Alzheimer's disease and dementia who are followed for a year or 2 years, inevitably things do happen in their health. And the reason we do studies with control groups is to try to understand whether, people taking a drug experience things more often than people who were not taking the drug. So, the key things here are make sure you have all the information you need. Make sure you feel comfortable and trusting of the person who's inviting you to be in the study. And make sure that others that are important in your approach to decision making agree with you that this is something that's worth doing, that doesn't unnecessarily put you at risk. But there will always be some risks, along with, we hope, some major benefits of helping the field move forward and perhaps gaining access to a treatment that could help your condition.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Dr. Grill, for such a valuable input today on all the different topics we talked about. And appreciate you coming on today to talk about pseudomedicine and what's real and what we should look for with that. So hope you come back and continue this conversation and discuss other topics as well. And I want to just say thank you to you for coming on today with the value information we have. All right.
It was really my pleasure. I really want to thank the folks from Bright Focus for putting on this incredibly valuable resource for our larger communities, and I'd be happy to come back anytime.
Take care, Josh. Bye-bye. Okay, guys, great segment today. Remember that if it looks too good to be true, it may be too good to be true, guys. And so definitely talk with your doctor or get in contact with us about specific medicines or treatments that make promises that they shouldn't. Great segment. We're going to do a quick poll for you guys right now. And we're going to pull up the poll for you. And let's see here. Here you go. Which of the following is false? Is it A, there are a few FDA-approved medicines that reverse dementia and its effect? B, clinical trials should never charge you for participating. 3, health websites sponsored by the federal government agencies are accurate sources of information. Or D, if you know of a product or supplement other than an approved product being advertised or sold as treatment for Alzheimer's or other diseases, you can report it on the FDA website. Which is false, guys? A, B, C, or D? A, B, C, or D? Is few FDA-approved medicines that can reverse. Oh man, you guys are smart. 100% correct. A is false. At this point in time, we don't have a cure to stop or reverse Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, guys. So be careful with medical scams that are touting that they have some kind of miracle drug or treatment for it. Instead, we do encourage a healthy lifestyle, changes like exercise, the mind diet, getting enough sleep to improve your brain health and to reduce your risk for dementia and Alzheimer's. And as always, your participation in legitimate, trusted, safe clinical trials, guys, that will help move forward the treatment that we have for dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Again, thank you everyone for participating. We have some resources for you guys, both national and local resources that we're going to share some slides with right now. This episode, along with the resources, will be emailed to everyone who signed up for today's program. And if you like to sign up for our emails or watch previous episodes or access more resources, you can do so at braininfolive.com. And you can go to that website to join our mailing list or watch more episodes or previous episodes. Thanks, guys. Thank you again, Dr. Josh Grill. Thank you, John Lewis. And thank you to you, the viewers. Until next time, take care.